The women who are most loved rarely try the hardest. Read that again. Because if you've ever poured everything into a relationship, your time, your energy, your emotional availability, and still felt him pulling away, this is going to reframe everything. Most women are taught that love is about giving. Give more, be more, tolerate more, and so they do. They become warmer when he goes cold, more available when he becomes distant, more understanding when he becomes selfish. And then, one day, he leaves anyway. Not because she wasn't enough, but because she was operating on completely the wrong set of rules. The things that make a man stay, genuinely stay, not just physically, but emotionally, are not what most women think they are. And the painful part? The behaviors most women fall back on under pressure are actually the ones that accelerate his exit. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those 4 things are and why they work on a deep psychological level. Welcome back, where we talk about the things most people think but never say out loud. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I post every week and we do not do surface level here. Let's get into it. Here's the thing. We've all been in that place. That anxious, hyper-aware place where you're analyzing every text, reading into every shift in his mood, trying to figure out if you're losing him. It is exhausting, and it is incredibly common. But here's what most people don't tell you, that anxiety doesn't come from weakness. It comes from a misunderstanding of what actually creates lasting emotional attraction in a man. Research in attachment theory, pioneered by psychologist John Bowlby and later expanded by researchers like Sue Johnson, tells us that secure attachment isn't built through constant reassurance seeking. It's built through something called emotional safety and differentiation. In plain terms, men don't bond more deeply with women who need them most. They bond most deeply with women who are whole without them. And neuroscience backs this up. Dopamine, the brain chemical most associated with desire and pursuit, is activated by novelty, unpredictability, and reward uncertainty. When a woman becomes entirely predictable, always available, always accommodating, his brain literally stops releasing the chemicals associated with desire. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding human psychology and using it with integrity. So let's break this down, starting with number 1. Picture this. You've been dating for a few months. Things are going well, and slowly, almost without noticing it, your life starts to reorganize around him. You skip your Saturday yoga class because he might call. You cancel plans with your friends because he's free. Your hobbies start collecting dust, and you tell yourself it's just because you really like him. Here's what's actually happening psychologically. What you're doing is called self-erasure under attachment, and while it feels like love, it registers to him as a loss of the person he was attracted to in the first place. Dr. Esther Perel, one of the world's most recognized relationship therapists, puts it this way: desire requires distance. When you collapse your entire world into someone else's, you remove the very mystery and aliveness that made him want to get closer. The practical shift here is not about being unavailable or cold. It's about keeping your life genuinely full. Keep the hobbies, keep the friendships, keep the ambitions. Let him come into a life that is already rich, not a life that has been emptied out to make room for him. A woman with her own world is fascinating. A woman who has made you her only world is, honestly, a little terrifying to a man who isn't ready to carry that weight. And number 2? This one surprises most women because it's something they think makes them seem difficult. Most women are taught to manage the peace. Smooth it over. Don't rock the boat. Forgive quickly. Keep the atmosphere warm so he doesn't pull away. So when he does something that bothers them, cancels last minute, goes quiet for days, says something dismissive, they absorb it. They tell themselves they're being emotionally mature. But what they're actually doing is training him. This is Behavioral Psychology 101 specifically, operant conditioning. If a behavior has no consequence, it continues. If every time he shows up inconsistently, you are still warm, still available, still forgiving without him having to earn it, you've just told him subconsciously that his inconsistency has zero cost. What actually builds respect and long-term commitment is gentle, calm accountability. Not nagging, not explosions, not ultimatums screamed in tears. Just the quiet, dignified communication of, "That didn't work for me." And then, crucially, following through. Maybe that means you weren't available the next time he expected you to be. Maybe it means you had a real conversation instead of pretending it didn't happen. Men who stay, who really stay, are men who learned early in the relationship that she has standards and she means them. That's not intimidating to the right man. It's deeply attractive. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the third thing on this list is about what you don't do. And it's the one that most women do constantly without realizing how much damage it causes. She's anxious. He's been a little distant, so she texts him. He responds. She feels better for about an hour. Then the anxiety comes back, and she needs another hit of reassurance. He starts to feel like he's managing her emotions more than experiencing a relationship. And slowly, without even knowing why, he starts to withdraw more. This cycle is one of the most common relationship enders there is, and it's rooted in what psychologists call anxious attachment, a pattern where your emotional baseline is directly controlled by another person's behavior. Here's what most people don't tell you. It's not the anxiety that pushes him away. It's the expectation that he must be the one to fix it. When your inner peace is entirely dependent on how he's acting, you are, without meaning, to place a weight on the relationship that it was never designed to carry. The shift is learning to self-regulate, to have tools outside of him. A therapist, a journal, a friend, a run, a breathwork practice that brings you back to yourself when you feel destabilized. Not because he shouldn't be there for you emotionally, he absolutely should, but because you shouldn't need him every time your nervous system spikes. When a woman can sit in discomfort without immediately texting him to make it better, she becomes someone he finds psychologically safe to be with. Because she's not a storm he has to manage. She's a person he gets to know. What I'm about to share next is the one that changed everything for the women who actually applied it, and it has nothing to do with how beautiful she is or how much she does for him. The moment a man tests you, and they all do, consciously or not, you will be faced with a choice. Compromise yourself to keep the peace, or hold your standard and risk the discomfort. The test isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's how you let him speak to you on a bad day. Sometimes it's whether you address something that bothered you or decide it's not worth the argument. Sometimes it's how quickly you accept less than you asked for because you're afraid he'll decide you're too much. Here's the psychology of this, and it's important. Studies on self-concept maintenance show that people treat you roughly as well as you signal you expect to be treated. Your behavior, your boundaries, your willingness to walk away when something is genuinely unacceptable are the signals that calibrate how a man relates to you. Not in a transactional tit-for-tat way, but in a deep, subconscious, who is this person and how do I show up for them kind of way. The women who are most deeply loved and most consistently chosen are not the ones who tolerated the most. They are the ones who made loving them well feel like the natural thing to do because they would accept nothing less. Self-respect isn't a wall you put up to keep him out. It's the foundation that makes real intimacy possible. When you know what you will and won't accept and you mean it, he doesn't feel less wanted. He feels like being with you is something worth earning. If you've ever done everything right and still lost someone, I want you to hear this. You didn't lose him because you weren't enough. You likely lost him because you were so focused on keeping him that you forgot to keep yourself. That's not a flaw. That's what happens when you love someone deeply and you've been taught that love means self-sacrifice. It's what happens when your worth has been tied for too long to whether someone chooses to stay. But here's the truth, the real truth that connects everything we've talked about today. A man who stays because you maintained your life, your standards, your emotional groundedness, and your self-respect isn't staying because you managed to hold everything together perfectly. He's staying because he genuinely, deeply wants to be with you. The full you. The you that existed before him and will exist beyond him. That's the version of you that's worth fighting for. And it starts with the small daily decisions, the class you don't cancel, the text you don't send out of anxiety, the conversation you have instead of swallowing it. You deserve a love that doesn't require you to disappear into it. And the beautiful thing is, the more fully yourself you become, the more magnetic you are to exactly the right kind of man. You're not too much. You've just been playing by the wrong rules. I want to ask you something personal. Of these 4 things, keeping your own life, holding him accountable, regulating your own emotions, maintaining self-respect, which one do you recognize as the one you struggle with most? Drop it in the comments. You might be surprised how many women are in the exact same place. If this resonated with you, subscribe to Lena Dot. I post every week, and everything we talk about here is designed to help you show up differently in your relationships and in your own life. And if you want to go deeper, watch this next. It connects directly to what we just talked about, and it goes into something most women have never been told about why emotional unavailability happens in the first place. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.